Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you might be. My name is Kevin Michael Grace, and this is the KMG Show for Monday, November the 1st, 2021. As you may have heard, the White House press secretary, not Jennifer, but Jen Psaki, has tested positive for COVID-19. It's a story by Patrick Riley in the New York Post. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has tested positive for COVID-19 after several family members at her home were infected earlier in the week, causing her to miss President Biden's trip to Europe, she announced Sunday. In a statement on Twitter, Psaki revealed that she made the decision to forego Biden's foreign trip on Wednesday when she learned members of her household had contracted the virus. She quarantined and tested negative via PCR test on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, but tested positive for the virus on Sunday. While I have not had close contact in person with the president or senior members of the White House staff since Wednesday and tested negative for 4 days after that last contact, I am disclosing today's positive test out of an abundance of transparency, the press secretary said. I saw the president on Tuesday when we sat outside more than 6 feet apart and wore masks. That must have been a rather difficult conversation because Joe Biden's communication skills are rather poor at best. So they were more than 6 feet apart and they both wore masks. I don't know. Abundance of transparency. Well, I guess if the press secretary, the president of the United States, were going to disappear for 10 days, questions would be asked. Psaki said she has experienced only mild symptoms thanks to the vaccine and has been able to continue working from home. She plans to return to work following the completion of her 10-day quarantine and a negative rapid test required to enter the White House. Why are all of these people who are fully vaccinated becoming infected with COVID-19? Curious, wouldn't you say? And as always, I'm just going to have to leave it at that. So, hello to the chat. Anne Rundan, Chogakin666 says, I can't believe it. Hello to Urban Planner. That's, me appearing on a Monday. Hello to Urban Planner, no sleep until Breezewood, PA. They huddled together waiting for the KMG 4 p.m. Uptown bus, and lo and behold, it finally came, says Quachulango. Yeah, I'm not going to say that from Anne Run. He babbles utter nonsense, and it's so appropriate, says Chokian666. The only time you'll see any type of transparency there, says David Wright. Dan says John Bon Jovi caught COVID despite some bad medicine. So how is her boss, Joe Biden, allegedly president of the United States? How is he doing? Well, he is in Glasgow for the COP26 climate summit and wearing a mask despite being fully vaccinated. And he fell asleep. I mean, granted, it was a boring presentation, but they're all boring presentations. And there he was. He just drifted off until a staffer gave him a little shove and he woke up. So people say that organized religion is dead. Well, there's one organized religion that's not dead, that goes from strength to strength. This is Hannah Southwick, page 6. Katy Perry dresses as COVID-19 vaccine for Halloween with Orlando Bloom. Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom gave pandemic-themed costumes a shot this Halloween. The pop star posed as a larger-than-life COVID-19 vaccine, with her fiancé dressing up as a doctor. Perry, 37, paired her full-body costume with a surgical mask and bright blue sneakers, while Bloom, 44, coordinated in blue scrubs, a lab coat, and white Crocs. Katy Perry is quite an attractive woman. And, of course, with this costume she's wearing, you can pretty much just see her eyes and her forehead. I don't know that was such a good decision. He completed the look with a stethoscope and an ID badge featuring his headshot and the name Dr. Dilf. I vaxxed a girl and I liked it. Get it? He captioned a photo of the look, tagging himself as Dr. Anthony Fauci. The fireworks singer also shared the couple's costume on Instagram, writing, "Stay safe, guys," along a series of photos that appear to have been taken outside of UCLA Health. She tagged her longtime creative director, Johnny Wujek, along with the CDC and vaccine creators, Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson. Yeah, got to give a shout out there to Big Pharma. They do so much for us. It's not the first time the Roar singer has had a timely costume on hand, as she also sported a hand sanitizer getup during an at-home episode of American Idol in 2020. The star is no stranger to dressing in wild getups either, having donned a Jeremy Scott-designed chandelier outlet at the 2019 Met Gala, cosplayed a hamburger, and more. Perry and Bloom have been engaged since February 2019 and share a one-year-old daughter, Daisy Dove. Oh, yes, and everyone was dressing up for Halloween. Well, all the celebrities were. And I see that Harry Styles dressed up as Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. And so Harry Styles has answered a longstanding question, which is it possible for a photograph to be HIV positive? And of course, the answer is yes. Hollywood does Halloweens from the Daily Mail. Queen of Scream, Heidi Klum, is a racy red cat, and Kendall Jenner dons fake boobs for Mars Attacks as they lead star costumes. Yeah. They just can't get enough of themselves. Can they? Yes, Heidi Klum. Ooh, she's a sexy kitty. I have to say that Kendall, Mars Attacks costume, it's pretty good, actually. But no, let's get dressed up and take pictures of ourselves and let the world know what fine, upstanding, and happy people we are. And here's Alec Baldwin, who for some reason, or his wife, Hillary, although she prefers to be called Ilaria. It's true, by the way. Yeah, perhaps it's time for you, Alec and Ilaria, to fall out of the spotlight for a while. I'll have more on that a little later. And this is an absolutely bizarre story from Tristan Balakas of People magazine. The Butt Judge family is spending Halloween in the hospital. U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, 39, and his husband, Chasen, 32, recently welcomed or procured Joseph August and Penelope Rose in August. But on Sunday, Chasen announced on Instagram that 2-month-old Joseph had been hospitalized. Happy Halloween from these twin infrastructure safety advocates. And there's a bunch of emojis. He captioned photos of the twins dressed up as orange traffic cones in a nod to the politician's mission to pass the nation's infrastructure bill. As you can see, we're spending this Halloween in the hospital, Chasen continued. Gus has been having a rough go of it, but we're headed in the right direction. We're so thankful for all of the love and support shown to our family these last few months, and also for the dedicated and kind medical professionals who have helped take care of our two little pumpkins as they've grown stronger, healthier, and cuter. And there is a picture here of the proud papas with their child who is dressed up as a traffic cone. Tell me, is it a commonplace for people to dress up in hospitals? I mean, why didn't they just get a dog if the idea is, oh, we can make them wear anything and then have it photographed? Just absolutely grisly. In the first photo, Buttigieg can be seen smiling and holding one of his traffic cone twins in his arms. In the second snapshot, the Transportation Secretary cradled baby Joseph in a hospital room as the little one wrapped his hand around his dad's finger. The newborn appeared to be hooked up to hospital equipment while Chasten placed his hand on the infant. Buttigieg commented his husband's post with a jack-o'-lantern emoji, while friends shared messages of support for the family in the comments. During an appearance on CNN's State of the Union Sunday, Buttigieg told anchor Dana Bash that the twins' costumes were Chasten's idea. No surprise there. So yeah, my husband Chasten found these. It's a little hard to describe, but basically they're like traffic cones. They're infrastructure. Basically, they're going to be going as infrastructure. Yes, State of the Union indeed. In Canadian news, Brian Mulroney, quite possibly the biggest creep ever to become Prime Minister of Canada, has told Aaron O'Toole that he needs to show leadership and show unvaccinated Conservative MPs the door. Of course, Brian Mulroney is now getting rich in the marijuana business. Yeah, no surprise there, I suppose. Who am I to argue with tens of thousands of brilliant scientists and doctors who urge the population desperately to get vaccinated? And we're going to have some members of my caucus, for example, who are going to say, I'm not going to do it. They have to do it. After a few weeks of conflicting messaging on the party's position on the House of Commons' new rules mandating vaccination, O'Toole said Wednesday that his caucus has agreed to respect and abide by the policy, but at the earliest opportunity, his party will be challenging it. Well, the Liberals, New Democrats, and Bloc Québécois, all fully vaccinated and seemingly fully supportive of the Board of Internal Economy's vaccine mandate, it remains to be seen how far the coming Conservative question of privilege to the Speaker will get. And today's the day where I am officially banned from traveling anywhere in Canada. Let's go to Alex Berenson's Substack and see whether there's anything that it would be permissible for me to read. Oh, he mentions Jen Psaki. Yeah. And, oh, yes. And this is a strange one. Again, I won't comment on it. I'll allow you to come to your own conclusions. Another day, another professional soccer player has an on-field cardiac arrest. This time in Norway. His name is Emil Palsson. He's 28 and Icelandic. No report on whether he is vaccinated, but Iceland has near complete adult vaccinations. 84% of people 16 to 29 are fully vaccinated. Same situation as Christian Eriksson. Palsson collapsed and his crisis was obvious immediately. He was rushed to a hospital. Let's keep him in our thoughts. I have a feeling this is going to happen in a way that makes it impossible to hide an NBA or NFL game or Premier League match. And let's go to Lockdown Skeptics. And I'll have more to say about Boris Johnson a little later. COP26 proves that for the billionaire class and their political bag carriers, virtue signaling is more important than being virtuous. And this is Toby Jones. I've written a piece for The Mail about the galactic levels of hypocrisy being exhibited by the billionaires, politicians, and celebrities attending COP26. Here is an extract. If hypocrisy were a type of fuel, the 20,000 attendees at COP26 in Glasgow would have solved the climate crisis at a stroke. Yesterday, Amazon owner Jeff Bezos flew into Glasgow in his £48 million Gulfstream jet, leading a 400-strong parade of private aircraft transporting billionaires to the climate conference. The jets, which included one carrying Prince Charles and his entourage from Rome, will disgorge more carbon into the atmosphere in a few days than 1,600 Scots burned through in a year. And the reason these plutocrats are flying into Glasgow, of course, is to wag their fingers at ordinary people, insisting we reduce our carbon emissions or face the wrath of the next generation. It's 1 minute to midnight, Boris Johnson warned, neglecting to mention that he has taken more than 20 private flights since becoming prime minister. 1 minute to midnight, is it? How long ago was Gordon Brown a prime minister? And didn't he say that unless this, that, and the other, unless the economy was wrecked, within 5 years, the world was going to end quickly? And of course, the world is nowhere near coming to an end from climate change. But they just don't stop with the apocalyptic predictions. Toby Jones continues, I would say that this means irony is dead, but climate change hypocrisy is a bit like the Black Knight in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Every time you think these rich and powerful do-gooders have inflicted a mortal wound on their moral credibility, they carry on as if nothing has happened. Perhaps the ultimate example of these double standards is Sky Chief Executive Dana Strong. The broadcaster is one of the main sponsors of COP26, and Ms. Strong has not been shy about lecturing her rivals for not doing enough to promote the green agenda. So is she leading by example? Not exactly. For the first 6 months of her term as chief executive, Dana Strong commuted to Sky's London headquarters from her home in Philadelphia via private jet. That meant she completed the 7,000-mile round trip multiple times before she relocated to London in June. The zero COVID absolutists at Independent Sage have, in typical style, denounced the medical and scientific experts on the Joint Committee of Vaccination and Immunization of proposing to use children as human shields because it wouldn't rubber stamp the government's decision to vaccinate healthy 12 to 15-year-olds. Surely it is the government that wants to use younger teenagers as human shields by insisting on extending the vaccine roll out to them. Mandatory vaccination for NHS workers would lead to a winter staffing crisis, warns NHS providers chief. And CNN, yeah, this is a good one. We're the first name in news. I'm looking at Wolf Blitzer, and he's sitting in a studio, or what appears to be a tent, and there's Edinburgh Castle behind him. I'm now reporting from Edinburgh in Scotland, where 20,000 world leaders have gathered for the COP26 Climate Summit. There's just one small problem, Wolf. COP26 is being held in Glasgow, not Edinburgh. And over 4,000 Australian healthcare workers suspended for refusing the vaccine. Thousands of English school children forced to wear masks. Despite, they're going to be vaccinated, but they'll have to wear masks anyway. 500,000 learner drivers hit by lockdown backlog. Age-adjusted excess mortality since January of 2020. It's up. It's up. And it mentions Jen Psaki, of course, who is she the most freckled woman in the world? Seems that way. Why do the modelers always seem to get COVID infection rate wrong? The constant addition of new variables into the equation, such as vaccines, variants, and changes to normal daily behavior, ensures that COVID models are largely inaccurate, writes Tom Calver in the Sunday Times. Heated debate in Victoria Parliament as Premier Dan Andrews is labelled dictator. He was called that in a hysterical screaming match in the Victorian Parliament over his new pandemic management laws. Shadow Attorney General Tim Smith critiques the Premier's power grab in a speech which can be found on the Mail's YouTube account. And I think that, there's a nice one from the Babylon Bee. Terrifying new Halloween mask depicts a human face not wearing a mask. And there's a picture of a young blonde girl, and she's wearing a mask, and there she's a pretty girl smiling, but we're not allowed to see that anymore because, science. And where am I going to go next? Oh, yes, Alec Baldwin. Maureen Callahan does not seem to have any ethnic affinity with fellow person of Irish extraction, Alec Baldwin. This is a really savage piece in the New York Post. How you say in English, just shut up and go away? After parading around Vermont all weekend, staging a bizarre impromptu roadside press conference and then posting happy family Halloween portraits on Instagram, Alec Baldwin and his insufferable fraud of a wife, Ilaria, have lost any public sympathy they once held. Boom, gone. All in about a week. Parenting through this has been an intense experience, to say the least, Ilaria posted on Halloween night. Really? Ilaria might want to talk to Hanya Hutchins, a widower, about what it's been like parenting their young son through this intense experience his mother shot to death on a movie set. But no, feel sorry for the Baldwins, won't you? Halloween, she wrote, from the Baldwin Ethos. This is really sick on so many levels. Those kids still aren't Spanish, yet Hillary from Boston keeps pushing that lie. Nor can she stay off Instagram, no matter how bad it makes her and her husband look, to say nothing of the legal and financial jeopardy her husband is in, a husband who may find it exceptionally hard to ever get insured on a film set again. You know, get work and make money. But no, the Rachel Dolezal of the Hamptons is back at it, asking for public sympathy with a soupçon of envy. Her husband may have accidentally killed a young wife and mother, but hey, covet their cozy autumnal New England lifestyle, won't you? Hutchins was buried Friday. Her son, Andros, is only 9 years old. The UK Sun reported that the child was unable to speak for 2 days after his mother's death. Andros was incredibly close to his mother, Halnia's father, told the Sun. The tragedy has wrecked a beautiful, perfect family. Everyone who knows them is destroyed by sorrow. And there's a bunch of pictures of Alec and his wife, and she's taking pictures. Always taking pictures. Can you imagine what kind of Halloween this little boy had? What agony the coming holidays will be for him and his father? Yet the Baldwins, in all their malignant narcissism, would have us keep our eyes on their particular freak show, one rife with bad acting, ill-advised activity, and Alec's strange aura of imperviousness. You get the sense that Baldwin's pretty sure he won't be criminally charged and that all this overacting. How many photos were taken of Alec this weekend with his head in his hands after he was caught shopping at Ralph Lauren, or going on a coffee run, or sitting at a bar in Vermont in a restaurant he and Ilaria bought out, right in front of a large window so the paparazzi could get their unobstructed shots? It's just to stave off a civil lawsuit. Going by public outrage over these antics, I know I'm not alone in hoping Hutchins' husband goes after Baldwin for everything he's got. Consider Alec's roadside interview 2 days ago, Callahan continues, in which he was sure to stress that Hutchins was my friend, and this was a very, very well-oiled crew who couldn't have foreseen this 1 in a trillion tragedy, all while Ilaria weirdly kept inserting herself into the interview, seeking the camera frame while glowering self-righteously at the press, her husband admonishing her in clipped, haughty tones to back off and stay out of it. Then Baldwin went right back to turning on the charm and sadness and reflexive Hollywood hypocrisy. I do know that an ongoing effort to limit the use of firearms on film sets is something I'm extremely interested in, he declared, as if he were campaigning for office, not the subject of an active investigation. I'm not an expert in this field. Hey, by the way, Alec, it doesn't matter. An expert in on-set firearms told the Post last week the buck stops with Baldwin. As producer, he was responsible for safety on set. With each passing day, we learn more about the utter incompetence and recklessness that seemed endemic to this production. 3 accidental gun discharges, a crew member shot in the foot, live ammunition on set, union staff walking off over safety concerns the very morning Hutchins was shot. An inexperienced young armorer had no idea what she was doing. An assistant director with various complaints about his inability to keep sets safe. Really, how could this not have happened? Again, as firearms expert Steve Wolf told the Post last week, if that scene required Baldwin to put the gun to his head and pull the trigger, I'm sure he would have taken a look inside the gun. Wouldn't you? Less than 2 weeks later, we're watching Baldwin destroy what's left of his career and reputation in the public square, aided and abetted by his equally terrible wife, couldn't happen to two more deserving people. Well, I saw the video of Baldwin being forced, well, vainly to silence his wife. And I thought, I don't know. I'm rather of two minds of this. Ilaria's loyalty to her husband is certainly, it's beyond doubt. And it's rather touching in these days to see such marital loyalty. But, of course, Alec Baldwin has not, let's say, he's not exactly one to keep silent. When it would probably be best to keep silent. This is from the Post-Millennial. Following the accidental shooting of a cinematographer, Baldwin's Twitter account was scoured by people across the internet. What they found was a history of anger and resentment. By far the most shared tweet was from September 2017, wherein Baldwin commented on the case of a Huntington Beach police officer who had shot and killed a man following a brief altercation. "I wonder how it must feel to wrongfully kill someone," Baldwin commented. And then there's a whole bunch of tweets where he just calls for people to be shot. Shoot these effing people. So when the plot stumbles or collapses, just shoot someone, correct? And then shoot this guy, then shoot him again. Representative Liz Cheney talks and seems so much like her father. I wonder if she's accidentally shot a good friend of hers in the face. There's another tweet from caring Alec Baldwin, as recently as October the 18th of this year. "All of the insurrectionist terrorists should serve their sentences in Angola, Rikers, some horrible shithole prison, make some special arrangements, to really open their eyes." Yeah. And, oh yes. When I first heard this phrase, "Let's go Brandon," I don't know, it took me about 10 minutes to figure out what was going on. And of course, it's become a national sensation. And how to make SJWs howl with this one weird trick. This is from Libby Emmons at the Post-Millennial. After a Southwest pilot was heard to say, "Let's go Brandon," an anti-Biden meme, over the intercom of a plane, that airline has launched an internal investigation. In a statement to Twitter, Southwest said that Southwest does not condone employees sharing personal political opinions while on the job serving our customers, and one employee's individual perspective should not be interpreted as the viewpoint of Southwest and its collective 54,000 employees. Southwest is conducting an internal investigation into the recently reported event and will address the situation directly with any employee involved, while continuing to remind all employees that public expression of personal opinions while on duty is unacceptable. The pilot said this during a flight on which an Associated Press reporter was a passenger. She wrote about the meme and its origins for the AP and tried to speak to the pilot as well through the locked cockpit doors. Though the locked cockpit doors posed a problem. That reporter, Colleen Long, reported that Southwest did respond to her query. The reporting of the pilot's words generated a firestorm of outrage at the pilot, the flight crew, and Southwest. Juliette Kayyem, who worked in the Department of National Security under the Obama administration, said that the pilot's joke reflect possibility of anger management or substance abuse. Pilots and airline employees have been at the front lines of the vaccine mandate debate with President Biden, demanding that they all get vaccinated or risk losing their jobs, and pilots and flight crews demanding the freedom to make their own medical decisions. Southwest Airlines said that they do not intend to fire employees who do not comply with the federal vaccine mandate. Former ABC anchor Dan Rather claimed that the chant of "Let's Go Brandon" is vulgar, despite more than 4 years of leftists screaming F Donald Trump from every platform they could find. Robert De Niro said it loud and proud at the Tony Awards for Broadway luminaries in 2018. Madonna said she wanted to blow up the White House at the Women's March on national television in 2018. Yes, the left lecturing the rest of us on civility No, I'm sorry. They cannot be allowed to get away with this. And so, yes, we have an explainer from the aforementioned Colleen Long at AP, how "Let's Go Brandon" became code for insulting Joe Biden. Oh no, nasty words directed at the president. We can't have that because the Democratic Party is all about civility. When Republican Representative Bill Posey of Florida ended an October 21 House floor speech with a fist pump and the phrase "Let's go Brandon," it may have seemed cryptic and weird to many who were listening, but the phrase was already growing in right-wing circles, and now the seemingly upbeat sentiment, actually a stand-in for swearing at Joe Biden, is everywhere. South Carolina Republican Jeff Duncan wore a "Let's Go Brandon" face mask at the Capitol last week. Texas Senator Ted Cruz posed with a "Let's Go Brandon" sign at the World Series. Senator Mitch McConnell's press secretary retweeted a photo of the phrase on a construction sign in Virginia. The line has become conservative code for something far more vulgar. F Joe Biden. It's all the rage among Republicans wanting to prove their conservative credentials, a not-so-secret handshake that signals they're in sync with the party's base. Americans are accustomed to their leaders being publicly jeered, and former President Donald Trump's often coarse language seemed to expand the boundaries of what counts as normal political speech. Oh, just stop. Politics in the United States has always been nasty and vulgar. And anyone who pretends otherwise doesn't know anything about history. But how did Republicans settle on the Brandon phrase as a G-rated substitute for its far more vulgar three-word cousin and then NASCAR, et cetera, et cetera? NASCAR and NBC have taken steps to limit ambient crowd noise during interviews, but it was too late. The phrase had already taken off. And it goes on and on and on and on. Oh, well, here's some history. America's presidents have endured meanness for centuries. Grover Cleveland faced chants of "Ma, Ma, where's my pa?" in the 1880s over rumors he'd fathered an illegitimate child. Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson were the subject of poems that leaned into racist tropes and allegations of bigamy. Well, John Adams accused Alexander Hamilton of being black, which he was not. And the people who made the musical decided that this nasty political insult was actually a reflection of reality. We all have a sense of the dignity of the office of president that has consistently been violated to our horror over the course of American history, said Cal Jolson, a political expert and professor in the political science department at Southern Methodist University. We never fail to be horrified by some new outrage. How about Lyndon B. Johnson? Thousands of people chanting, "Hey, hey, LBJ, how many kids did you kill today?" I don't really recall, the question of decency or civility being brought up at the time. So Matt Taibbi wrote about this on his Substack, and just the concern trolling. "Oh, Matt, we used to love your work, but what's happened to you? What's gone wrong?" He writes, "The Let's Go Brandon freakout goes next level. A Southwest pilot earns ISIS comparisons for joking into a loudspeaker as pundits continue to mass forget the previous 4 years." FBI special agent turned CNN political analyst Asha Rangappa, gosh, that resume sounds unsurprising, doesn't it, tweeted this yesterday. "As an experiment, I'd love for a Southwest Air pilot to say 'Long live ISIS' before taking off. My guess is that 1, the plane would be immediately grounded, 2, the pilot fired, and 3, a statement issued by the airline within a matter of hours. Put on your irony helmet. This is going to be a long ride." Rangappa was referencing a story involving a Southwest Air pilot who became a headline by saying "Let's go Brandon" during a flight from Houston to Albuquerque. Sitting on that flight, incredibly, was an AP reporter named Colleen Long, who was writing a piece entitled "How Let's Go Brandon Became Code for Insulting Joe Biden." The phrase has become a war cry for people all over the country, being at once a burn on Biden, the anxious airbrushing press, and the corporate conglomerates who are taking preemptive action to try to prevent such outbursts from ever darkening America's door. Now, WFBI agent Rangappa has essentially declared Let's Go Brandon the equivalent of an ISIS war cry. Supportive hand-wringing from press national security colleagues, is there a difference, was instantaneous. Donald Trump tried to overthrow American democracy, and at least one Southwest Airlines pilot thinks that's just fine, cried HuffPo's SV Date. Come fly the extremist skies, chimed in official Resistance mascot Aaron Rupar. Then there was Rangappa's fellow spook to CNN pipeliner, former Homeland Security official Juliet Kayyem. If Southwest Air doesn't do anything, every passenger on that flight has standing to file a complaint with the FAA, and they should do so. Southwest will then be compelled to investigate or defend him. Have fun with that. No messing around in the air. Bright line rule. Is it really possible, JB comments, that these people don't know they're being trolled? Part of the joke of Let's Go Brandon, of course, is that you couldn't go 5 minutes during the last administration without hearing someone in pearls or a bow tie screaming F Trump. I don't remember Rangappa pumping out Osama De Niro tweets after his celebrated Tony Awards appearance. The bigger part of the Let's Go Brandon gag is that such outbursts during the Trump years were not only not condemned, they were celebrated as pundits and reporters for the first time told us directly profane insults of presidents were okay. Robert De Niro's comments at the Tony Awards go viral, was CNN's bemused take, in a story quoting Ferrari Shepherd saying, Robert De Niro is my favorite rapper. Let's go back to the chat. Grover Cleveland was a piker, says William Hicks. Dionysus says, as they say, never tell an Englishman that he is not a gentleman, a Frenchman, a coward, and a German that he is stupid. Who else do we have? Dan Rather is still alive. Who knew? Says William Hicks. There was only one solution. Ban this anodyne phrase. Joe against 666. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, it's a joke. It's a troll. But what gets the impression that the people complaining, like this AP reporter, how could anyone dislike Joe Biden? He's just trying to do the best for America, and just this lack of respect. It's just disgusting. Do they really believe that? Dawn from Beyond says, OMG, KMG on a Monday, yeehaw. Contracu says, Let's Go Brandon is so effective because it crystallizes how the media is trying to gaslight us all 24/7. Don't believe your lying ears. Joe Biden is the most popular president ever elected. Hello to Don Willis. Thank you for your kind words. David Wright, Matthew Broderick, Laura Bush, Lady Bruce Jenner, and now Baldwin in the I Have Accidentally Killed Someone Club. The story of Laura Bush, we're out in the middle of nowhere, Texas. What at an intersection, one lonely highway, another lonely highway. She somehow manages to plow into the car of an ex-boyfriend, killing him. It's a strange story, wouldn't you say? William Hicks, so what are you in for? Oh, I accidentally shot the cinematographer. I accidentally shot my family and the dog, which just wouldn't stop barking. Hello to Professor Paul. David Wright says, Baldwin doesn't elicit much sympathetic response from people, better at playing his true self, an a-hole. Well, as Ramsey Paul says, he has killed more people than I have. That's from Dionysus. Seven Costanza says that Ilaria has had 6 white kids. I salute her. She is thirsty. My word, she's thirsty. Kevin, have you heard the statement a couple of days ago by the German EU rep, Christine Anderson, William Hicks? No, I haven't. Christine Anderson, well, just let me look this up here. It won't take long. Okay, what was it? Christine? Oh, I've forgotten the last name. Christine Anderson. Okay. Okay. Oh, all right. In the entire history of mankind, there has never been a political elite sincerely concerned about the well-being of regular people. Yes, actually, I did see that. And who else do we have in the chat? At the end of the day, okay, I don't want to talk about monotheism. I gave KMG sound and solid advice on how to get more subscribers, and he ignored me on Twitter and then blocked me, probably because of my anti-Semitism. Really? Have I blocked you? That was not my intention. As I said, I've only blocked people who have sent me pornography or, made physical threats against me. Okay. Expect roads cushioned in bubble wrap and smart cars that are locked to GPS speed limit, says No Sleep Till Breezewood, PA. Well, in that novel, that dystopian future novel about people living to 150 and beyond that I reviewed recently by Stanley Bing, the speed limit was 15 miles an hour because the prospect of being killed in a car accident when you're going to live to 150, I guess would just be too humiliating. David Wright says Baldwin is not sleeping well for sure. Enormous saddlebags under his eyes lately. Yes, indeed. KMG, what do you think about Windows 11? Asked Dionysus. I'm not going to use it. I have a 28-inch screen. I don't want my browser or my operating system to look like it's on a tiny little smartphone. I heard a new term today, says Urban Planner. Heat equity, Los Angeles, as minorities affected by climate change. Heat equity would build bus stops for those dealing with our variable climate, as NPR put it. When did adults start wearing costumes with their children on Halloween? 20 years ago? Something like that. Maybe even longer. I'm rather relieved that the Halloween season is over. Back in the day, we used to be out for hours and hours and hours. It's all closely supervised now. Kids get taken out by their parents for 30, 45 minutes. We would be out for hours with pillowcases. And the goal was to, at least half fill the pillowcase or more. And I remember when I was in grade 6, I thought, this is kid stuff. I don't want to do this anymore. It's embarrassing. And then about half an hour before my brothers and sisters went out, I just panicked. What's wrong with me? They're giving away free candy and I don't want to do it. So I did it in grade 7 for the final time and decided that, that's the cutoff. But now, of course, you see 15, 16, 17-year-olds going out trick-or-treating? I don't know, maybe even adults do it. Oh, okay. No, I'm not going to make any diaper jokes about Joe Biden. I think even the MSN acknowledges how unpopular Brandon is now, says Ann Run. Don Willis says Trump, 3D chess player living rent-free in tens of millions of people's heads. John S. says, I can see how the press is pissed about the Brandon chant. Biden is an empty suit animated entirely by media curation. They know the chanting is for them, not him. Nobody's home anyway. Let's see what Jim Kunstler has to say today. Chilling Bigly is the title of his column. Is it so, as some wags say, that industry no longer makes money, only finance does? That's been the operating theory for much of the West lately. Of course, that invites the question, what then is finance supposed to finance? That is, put money into. Why industry, of course. And in the broadest sense of the word, the production of goods, goods being things that have a value. That's what's good about them. How quaint. But most of the industry that used to be here has gone to other lands. What about all that money, capital flowing into technology? Facebook, Google, Amazon. What does Facebook produce besides conflict between its users? Okay, it harvests data about them to sell to advertisers. And what are the advertisers advertising? Their products. Who produces the products? Mostly those people in other lands. Facebook users then are increasingly not employed, at least not in the production of goods, perhaps in services like nursing, trucking, garbage pickup, food prep, police, firemen, prison guards, government bureaucracy. Is that a service or a disservice? And etc. Anyway, those service people are being fired left and right now because they refuse to be coerced into taking a vaccine. And I can't repeat what comes after that. While we're on the subject, what does Google produce? Supposedly answers to questions, plus, like Facebook, it harvests information about the people who ask the questions and then sells the info, blah, blah. And what about Amazon? Don't they sell a lot of products? Yeah, mostly produced by those people in other lands. What Amazon really produces is a phenomenal amount of motion, trucks going hither and thither at increasing cost now as the price of gasoline and diesel fuel shoots up. To me, that looks like a problem for Amazon's business model. Another problem is the growing number of people without gainful employment who have little money to buy stuff from Amazon, wherever it comes from. That last problem has been papered over for 2 years by helicopter money from the federal government, direct payment to the people for doing nothing, producing neither goods nor services. This has been an impressive trick. The money comes from nowhere and for nothing. The trick is based on simple accounting fraud. The second law of thermodynamics, aka entropy, suggests that eventually this process will degrade the value of money issued by the fraudsters. The hand in play for the moment is the spending legislation proposed by Joe Biden. It would generate a whole hell of a lot more helicopter money from nowhere for nothing, and would theoretically keep the game going a little bit longer. Except the process will only generate more unwanted entropy, causing decay in the value of that money and canceling the desired effect of spreading it around. That's called inflation. If the value of money drops hard and fast, that is called hyperinflation. It would be politically and socially devastating and probably lead to the downfall of the government. The net effect would be a nation bankrupt at all levels, and that will segue into an epic economic depression. If the legislation doesn't get passed, the USA will perhaps skip the hyperinflationary intermezzo and move straight into a deflationary depression, which is what you get when nobody has any money. When that happens, especially in a system with money actually based on debt creation, debts do not get paid. Mortgages, car payments, credit cards, perhaps even coupons on U.S. Treasury bonds. And when debts are not paid, money disappears. Poof, no money. It's a vicious cycle. The more money disappears, the more money keeps disappearing. None of this bodes well for the winter ahead. Add to that the growing breakdown in global trade operations. Even many of those goods produced in other lands aren't making it to the docks, and the reduced flow of goods that happened to already land on the docks can't get unloaded and delivered to its various destinations because of disruptions in the U.S. trucking system. To some degree, those disruptions are caused by bonehead government regulations, especially in California, where most of the stuff from Asia lands. The bonehead regulations, like outlawing trucks more than 3 years old, can be thought as typical government disservices. Now add to that the rising cost of oil, natural gas, and coal, the global economy's primary resources, and disruptions in the industries that produce these vital resources. And you've got another layer of disorder being introduced into the system, entropy again. For the moment, government propaganda tries to divert your attention to a possible shortage of Christmas presents as the nation's main concern. Don't be fooled. It's more about total systemic economic breakdown, as in U.S. citizens having no heat and no food, also no gasoline and no parts for fixing broken cars and trucks. Do you suppose the capital markets will keep rising as all this spins out? I would suppose that the capital markets will lose 80 to 90% of their value when all is said is done. The fabled 1% will finally feel the pain that was previously distributed among the rest of us. Don't make the mistake of thinking the 1% can control the situation. They are mere wizards of Oz barfing into their laptops. If working from home wasn't a thing, they'd be jumping out of windows on Wall Street. It's a grim outlook, I admit, but you could see it coming over the horizon from 1,000 miles away. Where I differ from other observers, as Kunstler declares, is that I doubt that any sort of extreme government surveillance state can be imposed on the public under these conditions. The people will be too pissed off, and anyway, the current regime will be broke and out of mojo, possibly to the degree that it has to be shoved aside. Let's Go Brandon is serious business. It's the end of something. In the background lurks this virus thing and the vaccination program it prompted. He concludes, stay nimble, stay local, stay reality-based, be helpful, be honest, be brave, and be kind to each other. We'll get through it. And speaking of chilling, a rather chilling piece from Victor Davis Hanson at American Greatness, who eventually won the Cold War. Pause for a moment to recall the recent past. Did the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff unlawfully intervene in the chain of command to reroute decisions of nuclear weapons readiness through himself? Did he really contact his Chinese communist counterpart to promise him that China would be warned of possible U.S. aggression? Did the lead medical authority on America's COVID-19 pandemic, Dr. Anthony Fauci, deny under oath the fact that he routed U.S. aid money through a third party to the Ground Zero Wuhan Virology Lab to enhance gain-of-function viral research? Did Attorney General Merrick Garland sick the FBI on parents complaining about critical race theory on the concocted accusation from a school board group, in part cooked up with White House staffer help, that the parents were likely domestic terrorists? Did we really spend 22 months and $40 million chasing the Russian collusion hoax, a myth ginned up by the left-wing media and its enablers in the FBI and CIA? Does the public really believe our current Ministry of Information that the border is closed, or that high gas prices are good, or that empty shelves reflect strong demand and will result in a more mature public no longer needing to buy superfluous goods, or that spiraling inflation is proof of a strong economy, or that the road to the Kabul airport was open to anyone with a U.S. passport who wished to leave, or that the accidental U.S. drone killing of a family in Kabul was a righteous strike, or that the Russians and Trump operatives created a fake lost Hunter Biden laptop, as our former intelligence officials implied on the eve of the election? Since when did the government and the now state media issue such serial lies? When did we begin to resemble our old Cold War enemies to the delight of our current enemies? In the ancient days of the Cold War, the United States relied on its open society, political tolerance, the Bill of Rights, and meritocracy to outproduce and outarm both the far larger Soviet Union and Red China. In other words, the Soviet commissariat and ideological watchdogs of communism were drags on Russian and Chinese research and development. Apparatchiks were not only unproductive but expensive. They even hampered the pursuit of science if they believed it challenged the monopoly of Marxist-Leninist ideology and control. In the case of Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution, Communist China destroyed entire cadres of scientific and intellectual research teams for generations by unleashing the Red Guards, who applied Orwellian revolutionary litmus tests to the most productive elements of society. And they usually found them worthy of death, imprisonment, or forced non-existence for their supposed lack of correct Maoist fervor, as proven by reading the wrong books, wearing the wrong clothes, saying the wrong slogans, or belonging to the wrong faction. And then he goes on to discuss China under communism, in comparison to the United States, which even welcomed countercultural and idiosyncratic capitalists from the wacky founder of CNN, Ted Turner, to the unorthodox Nebraska investor Warren Buffett, to the loner Steve Jobs of Apple. SAT and ACT college entrance standardized tests were seen as meritocratic. They were envisioned as a balance to toady letters of recommendations, wealth and status, or grade inflation and distortions, and thus helped ensure talented undergraduates from all walks of life. Whereas in the Soviet and Maoist systems, large swaths of public discourse were off limits, curbing not just free expression, but inhibiting science, history, art, literature, music, and religion. In the former United States, citizens spoke freely about anything and assumed that their talent and hard work could trump even the ideological, ethnic, racial, religious, and class prejudices of the ruling classes. No longer. Most American universities are now madly rushing to institutionalize expensive, unproductive, and dangerous commissars to warp research, restrict free speech, and monitor instruction and expression. They are euphemistically deemed diversity, equity, and inclusion administrators and human relations directors. Like the French Jacobins, Russian Bolsheviks, and Chinese Maoists, they justify their anti-enlightenment and totalitarian means by their supposedly exalted ends of equity. So where are we now? Autocrat Vladimir Putin, smiling as the Cheshire Cat, recently lectured America on its bizarre regression into racial tribalism, ideological intolerance, and cultural revolutionary nihilism. Putin severely assumed the role of the all-knowing, I warned you truth-teller, as he compared 2021 America to his own former Soviet Union. So he acted delighted that such wokeism might do to the United States what Sovietism once did to his mother Russia, creating the Orwellian conditions that can lead only to implosion, while bashing illiberal Americans as if they were the natural descendants of Bolsheviks. Indeed, Putin managed somehow both to wish us well in our headlong descent into hell and to signal his moral superiority and greater historic insight. This is part of what Putin said. The advocates of so-called social progress believe they are introducing humanity to some kind of a new and better consciousness. Godspeed, hoist the flags, as we say, go right ahead. It may come as a surprise to some people, but Russia has been there already. After the 1917 revolution, the Bolsheviks, relying on the dogmas of Marx and Engels, also said that they would change existing ways and customs, and not just political and economic ones, but the very notion of human morality and the foundations of a healthy society. The destruction of age-old values, religion, and relations between people, up to and including the total rejection of family, we had that too, encouragement to inform on loved ones, all this was proclaimed progress, and by the way, it was widely supported around the world back then and was quite fashionable, same as today. And again, that is Victor Davis Hanson at American Greatness. Yeah, okay, COP26. Who can be the most hysterical about this? Well, we have a winner, Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury. According to Reuters, he apologized Monday after saying world leaders who fail to act on climate change could be making a bigger mistake than their predecessors who ignored warnings about the rise of the Nazis. Welby, the spiritual leader of the worldwide Anglican Communion of about 85 million Christians, speaking at the start of the climate change summit in Scotland, said he was sorry for the offense caused to Jews by his comments. Oh, how about the offense given to everyone who's not hysterical ninny? I unequivocally apologize for the words I used when trying to emphasize the gravity of the situation facing us at COP26, Welby said on Twitter. It's never right to make comparisons with the atrocities brought by the Nazis. Welby had earlier told the BBC world leaders will be cursed if they fail to reach an agreement on climate change. People will speak of them in far stronger terms than we speak of the politicians who ignored what was happening in Nazi Germany, because this will kill people all over the world for generations. It will allow a genocide on an infinitely greater scale. I'm not sure there's grades of genocide, but there's width of genocide, and this will be genocide indirectly by negligence, recklessness. And, oh, yes. Very fashionable. The fashionable globalists show up, and Bridie Pearson Jones writes for the Mail, from a British poet who wrote a song with Beyonce to a Kenyan campaigner praised by Harry and Meghan Mertz, how COP26 opened with a very trendy parade of millennial speakers. And some woman who used to be a sex worker and is now apparently a big deal in the literature game. Let's find out more about her. Is this a story? Okay. I thought it, Call Girl, whatever. The Instagram poet who previously worked as a Topshop model found fame in 2014 after her first poetry collection, Bone, became critically acclaimed. This would be YRSA. I have no idea how that would be pronounced. Daily Ward. Yes. Oh, in 2018, she penned a gritty memoir detailing her meteoric rise from high-class escort to toast of the literary world, dazzling critics with her frank admissions. Oh, no, we never get frank admissions in memoirs these days. They're just so dull. Her frank admissions on her battles with mental health, of course, suicide attempts, of course, torrid affairs with married men, and taking on sex work to help pay the bills. Critics praised YRSA, who has also landed lap dancing and acting jobs in shows, including Shameless, for refusing to shy away from dark episodes in her life. Yes, again, one never sees that in memoirs. From being paid to act as the dominatrix to an older man, to experiencing racism as a young girl. Very painful life, apparently. And Justin Trudeau has pretty much decided to put paid to Canada's economy because of his ferocious desire to defeat mankind's eternal enemy, carbon. This is from John Paul Tasker at the CBC. Canada will announce a hard cap on emissions from the oil and gas sector, Trudeau announced Monday at the COP26 summit in Glasgow, calling the promise a major commitment that should inspire other resource-rich countries to dramatically curb their own emissions. Trudeau said Canada is prepared to limit the growth of one of the country's largest industries to help the world hold the global average temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. We'll cap oil and gas sector emissions today and ensure they decrease tomorrow at a pace and scale needed to reach net zero by 2050. Trudeau said during his 2-minute speech in front of other world leaders gathered in Scotland. That's no small task for a major oil and gas producing company. It's a big step. That's absolutely necessary. You know which country is all Billy Ho, building coal plants? That would be Communist China. And guess who's not at COP26? Why, that would be Communist China. But no, it's only right that Canada destroys its own economy when, of course, countries like India and China are going to continue to do what they have done. Oh, yes, I already talked about the hypocrisy, so I don't need to mention that story. And, oh, yes, Prince Charles is he's a nutter. And I guess I'm sort of a mild monarchist, but I fear for the survival of the British royal family should he become king. This is from Gabriel Keane at National File. Prince Charles called for a, quote, vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector, using the trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP, to fundamental economic transition, unquote, during a climate change conference on Monday. Military-style campaign. I don't like that phrase. It's frightening. In June, U.S. President Joe Biden mused about using F-15s and nuclear weapons on the American people. In Wednesday's speech, Biden went on to repeatedly bungle a quote by Thomas Jefferson, who wrote, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants." Biden says those who say the blood of liberty, the blood of patriots, and all the stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government, well, the tree of liberty is not watered by the blood of patriots. What happens is that there never been, if you wanted to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons, Biden said. Yeah. Prince Charles was a great friend of Jimmy Savile, one of the most evil men in British history. He was constantly hosting him at some palace or other, and he wanted Jimmy Savile to be the godfather of his children, or at least one of them. That didn't happen. Jimmy Savile was obviously deranged and evil. You only had to look at his eyes. But he took in a great many people, not just Prince Charles, but Margaret Thatcher as well, who just thought the world of him and used to invite him to Chequers to celebrate Christmas. Oh, yeah, I mentioned Boris Johnson is 1 minute to midnight. Let's see. William Briggs, the statistician to the stars, has an essay today. I have a new paper with the Global Warming Policy Foundation. If you search for them in Google, that company does not give you the URL, lest you be corrupted by non-expert opinion. Here is their summary. In his new paper, statistician Briggs surveys the field of climate attribution studies in which changes in the weather are blamed on humankind. In particular, he looks at the recent pronouncements on that subject by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in its 6th assessment report. Briggs' conclusion is that climate scientists are far too confident in their conclusions. Quote, there are multiple layers of uncertainty. There is the uncertainty in the events themselves, the uncertainty that arises out of the fact that the climate models used in these studies are imperfect, the uncertainty that arises from the statistical models used to reach the final conclusions, and finally, the fact that any correlations between models and reality are weak and inconclusive. Professor Briggs' paper is titled How the IPCC Sees What Isn't There, and his publication coincides with the release of another GWPF paper about the attribution methodology known as optimal fingerprinting. Earlier this year, the economist Ross McKittrick published a new paper about an important methodology used in attributing changes in weather events to mankind. McKittrick observed that the so-called optimal fingerprinting methodology, which has been used in numerous studies and has been behind dozens of newspaper headlines about mankind's influence on the atmosphere, was statistically erroneous. The implications of the findings are therefore potentially profound. Today, the Global Warming Policy Foundation is publishing a new paper entitled Suboptimal Fingerprinting, in which McKittrick explains in layman's terms the problems he has uncovered. A more technical treatment can be seen elsewhere. And are we done with that yet? Oh, this is funny. I haven't seen this documentary yet. I suppose I will this week. But there was an attempt to strangle Tucker Carlson's documentary on January 6th in its cradle. Just incredible stuff. This is Andrew White at the National File. Anti-Defamation League CEO Jonathan Greenblatt is frantically pleading with Fox News to stop the release of Tucker Carlson's upcoming Patriot Purge documentary and hide it from public view. So Greenblatt published the letter that he sent to Fox, and it is really something. Let's call this what this is, an abject, by the way, he hasn't seen the documentary, or hadn't when he wrote the letter. This is an abject, indisputable lie and a blatant attempt to rewrite history as an organization committed to fighting anti-Semitism and all forms of hate. We remain deeply concerned that the false narrative and wild conspiracy theories presented by Carlson will sow further division and has the potential to animate violence. This is, there's nothing Jewish about this issue, but of course, to Greenblatt, there is. And so he gets on his high horse. I am the CEO of the ADL, and I say this should not be permitted. Big-headed he is. Okay. What else do we have here? Oh, yes. Disturbing news from Britain. This is from protocol.com. Someone called Issy Lapowski. Lawmakers in the UK are considering making it illegal to post certain content online that causes, quote, emotional, psychological, or physical harm to the likely audience, unquote, and punishing violators with jail time, according to the Sunday Times. The provision would be part of the forthcoming online safety bill that is currently being drafted. According to the Times, the bill would outlaw threatening communications as well as knowingly false communications, which spread false information with the intent to cause emotional, psychological, or physical harm. I don't know what they mean by, false, knowingly false. So people who disagree with the narrative about, COVID-19 or climate change, so they're going to be accused of spreading knowingly false communications. Disagreement is not the same as disinformation. The broad law would place an emphasis on the experience of the receiver of the message and the harmful effects the message had on that person, the Times reported. We are making our laws fit for the digital age, a government spokesperson told the Times. Our comprehensive online safety bill will make tech companies responsible for people's safety, and we are carefully considering the Law Commission's recommendations on strengthening criminal offenses. So, hurt feelings. Okay. Well, I've been rude quite often about Megan Mertz and her witless husband. I've been rude about Harry Styles. These people have fanatical cheering sections, and I have no doubt that some people, seeing my tweets, were very angry indeed, that they felt hurt. Maybe even a few of them cried. And so that is to me made a crime in Britain now. And, okay. Yeah, let's get into the New York Times here, which, as I said, increasingly seems to be created in a parallel universe. There's a story in the New York Times by Lauren Christensen called Emily Ratajkowski is a Work in Progress. I don't know if you're familiar with this woman. What is she, about 30 years old? She is famous for getting her kit off. That's it. Yes, she's been, she was in Gone Girl, where she took her kit off. She's constantly in the mail. Here's, on Instagram, here's pictures of me naked with, arms and hands in, strategic positions. That's what she does. But apparently we need to be educated on the subject of this woman and why she is important. On a September morning in Soho, the airy, light-filled Inamorata office was filled with women. Besides racks of bathing suits and city sets, matching crew necks and bike shorts bearing versions of the logo, also found on the hand towels in the bathroom, they sat around communal tables, cooing over a baby. Sylvester is the 8-month-old son of the apparel company's founder and chief executive, Emily Ratajkowski. She and her giant husky mix, Columbo, were the only boys around. As you see, you're in my safe space, Ratajkowski said, sitting on a pink velvet couch facing the room where her team was tending to her child. Having your own company, you're the one who decides what the images are of your body that are going out into the world. Control is big for the supermodel. Ever since 2013, when she became famous for dancing semi-nude in Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines music video, images of Ratajkowski have diffused across the internet. From David Fincher's Gone Girl to paparazzi photos to fashion ads to her own social media posts, her face is so ubiquitous, she says she even gets tagged in tattoos. In 2018, when she was at the height of a modeling career she thought would be temporary, she dropped out of UCLA in 2010 and needed the money. Her mother, Kathleen Bogley, a former English professor, was diagnosed with a chronic abnormal protein buildup in her hands. Around then, Ratajkowski said, I felt like something was really missing. Alone in Los Angeles, where her husband, the movie producer Sebastian Bear McClard, was working in New York, Ratajkowski began to write. The resulting essays, collected in My Body, out from Metropolitan Books on November 9th, reveal a person whose politics and sense of self are very much in progress. They were written to try and figure out what I believed, she said. In the essay Blurred Lines, Ratajkowski returns to the set of a video that was criticized as degrading and even rapey, and considers misogyny and her role in it Back then, she was 21 and found the experience empowering, she writes, a chance to embrace her sexuality on camera and use it to her advantage. Now that she's 30, she sees how naive she was. Whether you're wearing a burqa or a bikini, she said, we're operating in the very specific confines of a cis-hetero, patriarchal, capitalistic world. She added, I always freak out when I use words like that, just as far as it's like a little obnoxious. Cis-hetero world, huh? That's why we never hear anything about trans people. They've been hidden. They've been swept under the rug. They're invisible. Patriarchal. Yes, it's such a patriarchal world that a woman who is famous for getting her kit off is invited to write a book of essays about her deep thoughts on, well, her body. Yeah, that's how patriarchal a world we live in. Well, it is capitalistic, no question about that. But this has been, very good for Emily Ratajkowski. It may not be especially radical to explore the power imbalance between the beholder and beheld, but Ratajkowski, who has worked to amass a social media following in the tens of millions, comes to the subject with an unusually influential voice. It's almost like she's a secret agent who infiltrated the beauty industry, reached its heights, and is now telling us what it's like in unsparing terms, said the writer Michael Schulman, who moderated a conversation between Ratajkowski and the comedian Amy Schumer at the New York Festival last month. Yeah. A regular Algonquin roundtable. But the industry has also infiltrated the secret agent. In the essay, Because Hello, Halle Berry, Ratajkowski has an existential crisis about being paid to post a picture of her butt on a free vacation in the Maldives, writing, I wanted to be able to have my Instagram hustle, selling bikinis and whatever else, while also being respected for my ideas and politics and, well, everything besides my body. She writes that hypocrisy gives her a headache. To earn that respect, Ratajkowski did her homework. In December 2019, she contacted the author Stephanie Danler, author of Sweet, Bitter, and Stray, asking for advice. They became friends. She really taught herself how to write that book, Danler said. She just read nothing but nonfiction, book after book, in a kind of self-made MFA program. Previously, writers had never modeled their styles on anyone else's. It was just, starting from zero. Among Ratajkowski's influences, Leslie Jaminson's The Empathy Exams, obviously, she says, Lacey Johnson's The Reckonings, one of my favorite books, and nobody knows it, which I think is just crazy, Alexander Chee's How to Write an Autobiographical Novel, and Lisa Taddeo's Three Women. Sarah Burstell, her editor at Metropolitan, said they signed a deal in the fall of 2020, shortly after The Cut published Buying Myself Back, an essay that is included in the book. In it, Ratajkowski recounted moments when she had seen photographs and images of her bought, sold, and shared without her consent, including in one case by a photographer she accused of sexual assault. It was the magazine's most read piece of the year. I've learned that my image, my reflection, is not my own, she wrote. The essay resulted in an outpouring of support. Even so, as she prepares for the release of her book, Ratajkowski insists her name is a handicap. I've internalized the way that I've not been taken seriously and just been treated like a body. If you're a celebrity who wants to write a book, she added, what happens is that a lot of doors open for you, but not in the right way. Ratajkowski said she asked Metropolitan to publicize My Body as comparable to Misfits, the memoir by the Emmy-winning screenwriter Michaela Cole. I love how that happened for her with I May Destroy You. I think it was so interesting. It started those conversations, which is really all I want, Ratajkowski said. It was weird to realize, it's not going to be the same for me. And this goes on for hundreds of words more. Keep in mind, this is a story about a woman who is famous for being photographed naked. And let's continue with the New York Times here. There's a woman called Amanda Hess, who I've come across many times, over the last decade or so. And I guess she's just hit that sweet spot. She is the voice that everyone wants to hear. This is a piece from Critics Notebook in the New York Times. In this house, yard signs and their curious power. How a lawn sign inspired by mom decor became a liberal mantra and a symbol of a political battle over white womanhood. Wow. There is a sign that has become ubiquitous on the lawns of Democrats who have lawns. In this house we believe, the sign begins, followed by a stack of progressive maxims listed in capital letters. The classic version reads, Black Lives Matter, women's rights are human rights, no human is illegal, science is real, love is love. Then the kicker, kindness is everything. Kitsch. The kitsch has replaced politics. When the yard sign first appeared in the wake of the 2016 election, I barely noticed it. That era had produced such an exhausting array of ironic paraphernalia, Kofefi mugs, Make Donald Trump Again caps, accessory styling Ruth Bader Ginsburg as a rapper, that a placard of earnest liberal word salad hardly registered as a rich text. But over the past 5 years, as the sign spread across the suburbs, I found myself seduced by its chaotic jumble of typefaces, its lifestyle blog adjacent aesthetic, its sanctimonious final line, and its curious staying power. Donald Trump is out of office. I haven't seen a crocheted fuchsia beanie in years, but nevertheless, this sign has persisted. What began as a symbol of liberal objection to Trump has spawned a whole genre of signs enumerating political and pop cultural obsessions. Along the way, it has come to represent the lasting psychic imprint of the 2016 election and the crisis it spawned over the national reputation of white womanhood. Is she serious? Is she serious? Before the sign was everywhere, it was outside the home of Kristen Garvey, a librarian in Wisconsin. In what she has called a post-election fog, Garvey took a Sharpie to a poster board, scrawled a range of social justice slogans in that now ubiquitous list, and planted it in her yard. Soon a photograph of the sign hit Facebook and went viral. With the help of a redesign from a professional artist who rendered its words in rainbow letters on a black background, and a boost from Pantsuit Nation, the online hive of Hillary Clinton supporters, its message became a mantra among liberals who felt lost in Trump's America. Mashable called it more bold and memorable than anything the Democratic Party has come up with in the last 4 years. Political yard signs are no longer just election season events. Conservative counties are rife with signs expressing support for Trump, though he holds no office and is not currently running for anything. And the In This House sign has pawned many flattering imitations and absurdist parodies. There are versions for neoliberals, yimbies, conservatives, conspiracists, fans of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and people irked by the triteness of the original sign. In 2017, Garvey's poster was acquired from the archives of the National Woman's Party, an organization which had, a century earlier, led the most militant fringe of the American suffragette movement. It's a remarkable outcome for an artifact born from such a humble tradition, mom-related decor. If you have visited a beach town bric-a-brac shop, browsed a farmhouse-style Pinterest board, or stayed in a generic Airbnb rental, the In This House sign format may be familiar. In this house, the sign begins, followed by a list of aphoristic family rules such as, we do hugs, we do mistakes, we do loud really well, or we do family, oh boo, groan hiss. Often the messages are overtly sanctimonious, we do prayer. Sometimes they end with a saucy twist, we cheer for Clemson. Like other incantations in the mom-core canon, the sign is often printed on a purposefully distressed plank in a variety of fonts, perhaps a gloopy typewriter style punctuated with bursts of spindly cursive. The whole decor category, see also Thou Shalt Not Try Me and Mama Needs Her Wine, features a mother character who serves as the fun, if beleaguered, keeper of the family's moral compass. Though in this house we is phrased like a disciplinary guide for children, the signs feel directed to the adults in the room, reminding them of their own mission amid the chaos of parenting. While this genre sign was translated into a symbol of the résistance, it left the living room and entered the public sphere. The target audience expanded from the family unit to passing neighbors and total strangers. Now the sign suggested a culture-wide lesson plan, even as its framing in this house remained individualistic. It was attuned to meet a particular cultural moment for liberal white women who were experiencing not just a political crisis, but a reputational one. The typical member of Pantsuit Nation may have felt personally attacked by Trump's win, but she was also made to feel responsible for it. One of the most memorable signs of the 2017 Women's March read, "Don't forget, white women voted for Trump," punctuated by an ominous scrawl of red marker. Initial exit polls suggested that Trump more than won 50% of white women voters, and that figure formed a powerful narrative that implicated the whole demographic. Though it was the overwhelming support of white men, boo, that swept Trump into office, it was the ambivalent position of white women that became an object of public fascination. The allegation was that liberal white women had failed, metaphorically speaking, to clean their own house. In 2018, the Pew Research Center released a more solid analysis of the 2016 electorate, which determined that 47% of white women voted for Trump, edging out the 45% for Clinton. However you sliced it, white women were split roughly down the middle, suggesting a tense battle for the soul of the demographic. A whole résistance aesthetic arose through which liberals could mark themselves as anti-Trump. In one ludicrous example, liberal celebrities affixed safety pins to their clothing, signaling that persecuted minorities were safe with them. Oh dear, it was as if a whole proxy war was being fought on the turf of femininity. In March, Carrie Batten chronicled the political tumult that swallowed the knitting website Ravelry as pussy hat makers squared off against pro-Trump women with handles like The Deplorable Knitter. Indeed, crafting has long been used for political ends, slyly subverting the expectation that women's work stay inside the home and using existing women's networks like sewing circles to foment political action. If you say so. And this goes on and on and on. And yes, I'm a writer for the New York Times, top writer. I have a Wikipedia entry and everything. So what am I going to write about? Oh, one of my friends mentioned something to me. So this is obviously a really important trend. Obviously, really, really important because I overheard something or I saw a Facebook meme. And, well, I got to salute Amanda Hess. You know, she definitely seems to have captured the zeitgeist, or at least one half of it. Speaking of Emily Ratajkowski, this is from D. Lawrence at the Mail, Australia. Celeste Barber does Emrata. Aussie comedian parodies Emily Ratajkowski in hilarious bikini-clad spoof video. Yes, and here's a typical picture of Emily. Oh, look, she appears to be naked from the waist up, and there's her ass. Yep, front and center. And so this Australian comedian mocked her, leering salaciously at the camera, unlike her stony-faced counterpoint. She captioned the spoof post, "We are sick of you objectifying our bodies. Also, here's my ass." Yes, that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Let's have a look at the chat. Oh, okay. What happened? Is the chat dead? I don't know. What's going on here? Tippy Canoe and Tyler too. Sachoka a six. And I don't know. Let me just check and see whether someone has sent me something indicating that the Greta makes me genuinely laugh. It's healthy for me. She was ranting, just ranting today. The people at COP26, they're not going to accomplish anything. It's us. Really? Okay. And, okay. Here's something interesting from a PD Mangan. Aspirin at 1 full-strength tablet daily for 1 week increased performance on the backwards digit span test, a component of intelligence in healthy young men. Is there anything aspirin can't do? Oh, yes. Again, are these things really happening? I can scarcely believe that they are. This is Eileen Reslin at page 6 of the New York Post. Kanye West's budding friendship with Marilyn Manson continues to flourish. The Jesus Walks rapper invited the shock rocker to join him and pal Justin Bieber for a prayer circle at Sunday service on Halloween. The unlikely trio were seen wrapping their arms around each other as they bowed their heads in prayer. They wore head-to-toe white for the religious gathering. Thank you for your power. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your peace. Thank you for your forgiveness. Bieber, 27, can be heard saying in a clip shared on Twitter as a gospel choir chants behind him. Meanwhile, Manson, who has been accused by several women of sexual abuse, nodded in agreement. Under his white headpiece, the 52-year-old dope show singer could be seen wearing his signature white face makeup and black eyeshadow. West, 44, had his eyes closed and his arms in front of his waist. A full live stream of the service was featured on Triller and Fight TV and is available for download for $9.99. West revealed last year that he spent $50 million on Sunday service in 2019 and faced 2 class action lawsuits earlier this year alleging mistreatment of performers and staff. This is the first Sunday service that Manson has attended in 2007. The Church of Satan high priest Peter Gilmore told Wikinews that Manson was a member of their church and had been given honorary priesthood. When asked about what Satanism is, he can be very articulate in explaining it, the priest said at the time. But his own music is his own art. His stage shows are his own, and they don't really exemplify Satanism in particular. Gilmore described Satanism in that interview as a self-centered philosophy in which you are taking on for yourself the complete onus for your personal success or failure. You can't be praying to God or blaming a devil or anyone else for that matter for what happens to you, Gilmore added. Manson wrote about his involvement with the Church of Satan in his autobiography, The Long, Hard Road Out of Hell, according to Rolling Stone. Since earlier this year, at least 15 women, including actress Esme Bianco, have accused the personal Jesus singer of various levels of sexual, psychological, and physical abuse. Although his case against Jane Doe's was dismissed in September, a judge ruled in October to continue proceedings with Bianco's case. Personal Jesus, did he cover that? I thought that was a Depeche Mode song. Amid the onslaught of sexual assault claims, West invited Manson to attend his Donda listening party in Chicago back in August, which was met with much criticism. Reps for West, now legally rechristened as Ye, did not return page 6 request for comment. Manson's rep has not returned requests either. Marilyn Manson must be feeling pretty desperate. And let's catch up with Succession. I greatly enjoyed last night's episode. I thought it was the best of the season so far. We haven't seen much of Tom this season, but we saw a lot of him in yesterday's episode. And it has, occurred to Tom, who's not a stupid man, that he is in big, big trouble. Of course, he's known this. I don't know. You remember in season 1 where he dragged Greg into this about the cruises? And the information about the cruises, and he said that it was a virus, and I've been infected by the virus, and if I show this to you, then you're going to be infected as well. And Greg says, no, I don't want to be infected. Well, he did infect him, And I suppose Greg is accused of dual loyalties. And Tom, in typical fashion, decided to be petty and took him out of his office, with the window, nice office, and gave him a large room, which appeared to be a storage room with junk all over the place and unpainted walls, or walls where the paint had come off, just to spite him, just for Tom to show that he's not particularly important in the company because he's not a Roy, but Greg is even further down. So let's stick it to Greg. Of course, poor Greg. That Kendall had promised him that he was going to give him a watch, fancy watch. Greg was very excited about this, and then Kendall says, "No, I didn't promise to buy you a watch." I don't know. One wonders, is Kendall using again? And it turns out that this watch cost $40,000. And Greg, as you might understand, was not keen on spending $40,000 on a watch. And he said, "No, I don't want the watch." And so he was told, "No, your patina is on it. Oh, you've touched the watch. So you have to buy it." I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Jerry in this season. In last night's episode, she was actually talking back to Logan, because Logan had taken the position that we are not going to cooperate with the authorities. And then we're going to fire Kendall, and Jerry pointed out that both of these disastrous decisions. But of course, I guess we knew that it was going to happen. The episode was called "The Disruption." The disruption refers to, what's going on in the company. And also, just really on the nose, comedy show. Some SJW black woman with just painful rants against, male Caucasian brain. Although I liked some of her insults, calling Logan Benedicthead Arnold, which is clearly, the creator of the show, or Tony Roach, came up with that one. That's very, the very thick of it sort of a joke. And Jerry is CEO, and she wants to make her own decisions. But of course, Logan he believes that he's still running the company. And of course, he has made Siobhan president of the domestic operations. And just watching her watching her yesterday, it was really brought home to me that, what Kendall said in last week's episode is absolutely true. Siobhan's a clever woman, but she knows almost nothing about the business. And now she's the president in America. Why? Because she's a woman. Now, Jerry is a woman, but Jerry is a clever and hardworking woman who knows the business inside out. Her promotion is deserved, and Siobhan's is not. Of course, we were all, that Kendall has just been on such a manic high for season 3, and he was in a manic high, for most of the last episode, but we knew that he was going to crash. And it was quite pitiful watching him cowering in an electrical room when he was supposed to be on the, radical, edgy comedy show where he was, come on, beat me up. And I'm thinking, this is unnatural. People, as a rule, do not like people saying horrible things about them to their faces. And even more so, they don't like this being broadcast on television to millions of people. But Kendall thinks that, he's so righteous that he can survive this. Of course, when Shiv decided to unload on him and Roman, and the other brother. They were not signing this document. It's just a declaration of war. Kendall is a drug addict, a bad father, mentally ill, and we've tried to help him, but it's been of no avail. And so Kendall crashes. Crashes. I don't know. I don't really know what his plan, what his vision for the company is. Last week he was talking about detoxifying the brand, that in the future that news is going to be more valuable than water. And I thought, really? Because we live in an age now where the Wall Street Journal runs a story about the difficulties of having sexual intercourse during COVID while fat, and used the word schlubby 3 times. Kendall talked about detoxifying the brand by what? By making the television division just like CNN and MSNBC. He speaks in this atrocious, just these buzzwords, these corporate buzzwords. And, he's talking yesterday about his headspace, that he felt comfortable, in his headspace. And, other people, I hope they were comfortable in their headspace. Just, it's really childish, We saw a return of a Colin, the head of security, who had some frightening words for Kendall. I know you, referring to, what happened at the end of season 1. This Colin fellow, I would not want to get on the wrong side of him. Oh, best part. So Siobhan is taking a victory lap, introducing herself to the entire company, or everyone in their Manhattan headquarters, as the new president of domestic operations. And we start hearing music, and it's very, very loud, and we can't hear Shiv anymore. And it's the Nirvana song, Rape Me. And I don't know. I think Shiv handled it better than I would have. I mean, I might have burst into tears or something. Oh, yeah, I'm introducing myself to you for the first time as a CEO, and it's a new era here, and, we get it. And here's this, miserable, self-loathing Nirvana song, Rape Me, being played, obviously, referring to the people who worked on the cruises, well, and passengers on the cruises as well. So yeah, it was good, a good episode. Let's have a look at the chat, and then I'm going to talk about music. All of the chess cookies are the same, butter or shortcake with no toppings, says Anwar. You must be thinking of the Milanos. Milanos rock, says Chogakin. 666. Brian Cox equals best lector, says Picasso 88. Yes, a much more subtle and nuanced performance than Anthony Hopkins, who can often be a real ham. I don't hate Hopkins in it, says Anrun. He was eating scenery, but a great actor doing that isn't always a bad thing. Manhunter is the best Hannibal Lecter movie. Yes, certainly. I agree. Fancy watch, probably a Rolex, probably a Patek or a VC. Who is your favorite character on Succession? Greg. He's so awkward. He's so bemused. He's so eager to please. He's so, half terrified. It's funny. Very, very, very funny. Oh, we're talking about Pepperidge Farms here. Okay. Remember when women actually face the camera? Pepperidge Farms remembers. Okay. Anrun says, I found out today that one of the Zodiac Killer's first victims, the cute blonde at the start of Fincher's movie, was a witch, or at least very interested in witchcraft. Okay. So I'm going to talk about a piece of music, an opera. and it is called Don Giovanni, and it was first produced in 1787, and it was written by Mozart, wrote the music, and Lorenzo da Ponte wrote the libretto. Da Ponte was a really remarkable man. He was a Jew who became a Catholic priest. It doesn't seem that he was all that faithful in his vows, although he did have a Catholic funeral. Da Ponte was a bit of a rake, you know, and Don Giovanni, Don Juan, and he ended up moving to America, amazingly, and he ended up in New York City, and he became a professor of Italian at Columbia College. How about that? And I see that he was his funeral was at the old St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. He wrote 3 libretti for Mozart: The Marriage of Figaro, Don Giovanni, and Così fan tutte. Così fan tutte means they are all the same, and the they being women. Don Giovanni is an opera about men and women, the differences between them. And it begins with the aftermath of a seduction. And we see that the Don, who is wearing a mask, he has seduced a woman, Donna Anna, who is the daughter of the Commendatore, or that is to say that the military governor of Seville. And we're introduced to this feminine hypocrisy right from the very beginning, that she's engaged to be married to a good-hearted, but rather, we'd call him today a simp, Don Ottavio. And she's been found it's a very embarrassing situation for her. So she accuses the Don of, rape, essentially, which is not true. And her father, who is a brave man, to be sure, decides to fight for his daughter's honor, and he wants to duel with swords, fencing swords, with the Don, and the Don is quite skilled in this, and it's not a very long battle, and the Don Giovanni, stabs him fatally, and of course the Don has been wearing a mask, and it is only as the Commendatore is dying that he reveals his identity to the shocked Commendatore. And I have to say the duet between them, between the Don, who he has this tremendous pity for the Commendatore who had, died foolishly, and the piteous singing of the Commendatore, it is really a beautiful duet. And a little word about Mozart here. There's a myth arising from that idiotic play Amadeus, which was made into an idiotic movie, that Mozart was some sort of idiot savant. He was not an idiot savant. An idiot could not have written the music to accompany Da Ponte's words, such as the duet I just described, where you feel the Don's, you feel his regret at having had to kill the Commendatore, and you just feel the pity for the Commendatore. You also feel contempt for his lying daughter. Now, this is described as a murder, but it is not a murder because it was the Commendatore. who initiated it. This is a, properly speaking, I suppose you could say this is a comedy. It's called a drama jocoso, officially. And so you have both comedy and drama in it. And most of the comedy comes from Don Giovanni's long-suffering, as they say, servant, Leporello. Now, many productions, he is played as an idiot. In other productions, he isn't. My favorite production is that of in Salzburg in 1987, Herbert von Karajan conducting the Vienna Philharmonic with Samuel Ramey as the Don and Ferruccio Furlanetto as Leporello. They used to swap roles. They did many, many times. Ramey also used to sing the title for James Levine at the Met as well. Sam Ramey is a really an American from Kansas, dashing sort of figure. The 1987 production was shown on PBS, and it came with interviews between Act 1 and Act 2, in which Sam Ramey and Ferruccio Furlanetto were talking about, the Don. And I remember Ramey saying that most men, they probably like to be a little more like the Don, because he is a brave man. He's a brave man who loves life and seeks what he wants openly. Now, he's not a good man, but no, I think that Sam Ramey was right, that most men would like to have more of the spirit of Don Giovanni in him. We learned that Don Giovanni is, he is quite a seducer. And in fact, there is a book. Leporello keeps a book of all of his seductions. Mille tre, a lot of seductions. 1,003 in Italy alone. And Leporello, this is called the Catalog Aria. It's one of the most famous arias in opera, where there is another highborn lady, Donna Elvira, who was seduced and abandoned by the Don. But she's a very good-hearted woman, and she thinks that somehow the Don can be converted to a life of virtue, and Leporello openly mocks her by reading from the list of all of the women that the Dirty Don has seduced. And we see that Don has eyes on Zerlina, who is the fiance of Mazzetto, a peasant. Mazzetto he's not very bright, and he doesn't seem to understand that the Don has designs on his fiancée. Now, the opera, I suppose it begins at close to a high point for the Don, but we see that forces are conspiring against him. That there is a gorgeous duet between Don Ottavio and his fiancée, the daughter of the commendatore, in which they swear an oath to catch and kill the Don. And eventually, more and more people are drawn into this conspiracy against Don Giovanni. But he is, let's say, he does not repine. There's a fine aria called the Champagne Aria, in which the Don is looking forward in expectation to a party. And what is it that brings down the Don? Well, is mockery of the dead, specifically that of the commendatore. It's not It's not the done thing to do, and the commendatore gets his revenge. You know, one of the bad things in the movie Amadeus is that supposedly Mozart was forced in some way to add the sextet, which closes the opera. That's just rubbish, absolute rubbish. Oh no, he wanted the opera to end with Don being dragged to hell. The final sextet, apart from being just astonishing, and how Mozart could find so much variety for 6 people singing on stage, that it really puts a bow on the opera, saving the appearances, they call it. That everyone involved, the characters that survive, they have all been, blind or hypocritical or naive in some way, but they all congratulate themselves. Oh no, the wicked Don is dead now, so we can go back to being a virtuous. And poor Don Ottavio is told that, oh yes, that his fiancée is there'll be a period of mourning of a year for her father, and only then can they get married. I shouldn't think that this would be a particularly happy marriage. But let's talk about versions here. I mentioned the Carry-On version, which was put out on DVD by Sony. It is out of print, and copies go for over $100, which is unfortunate. Going back to 1955, there's a fine filmed performance. It would be mimed, not live like the Carry-On version. Conducted with the Vienna Philharmonic, and this time conducted by Wilhelm Furtwängler, and it stars Cesare Siepe as the Don, and he gives a really fine performance. Both versions that I mentioned here, they use traditional staging. You may have heard this term, reggae theater. It's just disgusting. Oh yes, let's make Don Giovanni a critique of capitalism or some such, ridiculous costumes, and it's a kind of cultural terrorism, which the infection began in Europe, and then it spread to North America. But again, thankfully, the 2 filmed versions that I mentioned do not go in for this nonsense. And I'll point out that last time I checked, the entirety of the Furtwängler Don Giovanni, you can watch it on YouTube. It looks good. And you can find, last time I checked, the entirety of Carry-On's Don Giovanni on YouTube with the Italian subtitles and an English translation, which is really useful because you often have a lot of things going on. For instance, in the final scene with Don Giovanni, when he boldly tells Leporello to set another place, and the jig is up, but he declares "Non ho timor," I am not afraid, and he's the commendatore is demanding, pentiti, repent. And he says, "No, you old fool." And it goes back and forth. Meanwhile, Leporello is singing as well, hilariously making, tell him, you don't have time to meet him, etc., etc., etc. So it's useful to have the words in front of you. I find Don Giovanni, I mentioned before that Don Giovanni is my second favorite opera. A Dialogue of the Carmelites by Francis Poulenc and Georges Bernanos is my favorite. But Don Giovanni is absolutely magnificent. And as I say, Da Ponte knew a lot about women. And Mozart's, the 3 operas that he made with the Ponte, they really benefit from this knowledge. Let's go to the chat. Okay. We need a Dune opera, says Yo Mama. Okay. Brian Cox has played Goering, Trotsky, and Hannibal Lecter in movies. He was also in a movie, the Broken Lizard People? He played a cop in that. Kind of surprising to see him there. It's pretty funny in it, you know? Okay, that's about it for today. And glad to be back on a Monday. I will be back on the air tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And what is coming up later in the week? On Theater Thursday, I am going to be discussing the first 3 seasons of Tom Tykwer's Babylon Berlin. And on the book club, on Friday, I'm going to be discussing The Executioner by Joseph de Maistre, the great French reactionary. And on music, Monday next week, long promised, long delayed, I'm going to take a look at the cult of the performer. So, I'll be back again tomorrow, as previously mentioned. Thank you all for tuning in. If you would like to make a donation to this live stream, which would be a great help to me right now, my PayPal account is linked to Kevin_Grace@hotmail.com. Once again, Kevin_Grace@hotmail.com. If you are in Canada, donations may be made directly via Interac to kevingrace@shaw.ca. And as always, I leave you with this. In these days of social atomization and civilizational collapse, I do really wish that you, my dear viewers and listeners, manage to forge a genuine human connection in order to ease the burden. Good night.